everyone. Well, welcome back to another Skills Workshop, episode 39. We are almost there, AB. We're going to hit 40, and then before you know it, we're going to get to 50. Can't wait. The half century, we'll be able to tip our hat and say...
Catching up with my age.
30, 40, yeah, 39, 39. Guys, thank you so much to everyone that attended the New South Wales and ACT Kickstart.
How good was it?
That was amazing, right?
So good.
Not only to see so many people in the room, I love the venue. I love the fact that everyone got time to actually talk with each other.
Yeah.
And then some of those speakers, like, seriously, inspirational. And Adrian, we've been bombarded with questions, comments, feedback about Kickstart. Now, Brisbane and Victoria, don't worry, we're coming to you Tuesday in Victoria and Thursday in Brisbane. Can't wait to see how you guys react and the feedback you give us about those two events, because I reckon out of all the years that I've been to McGrath Kickstarts over the course of my career with McGrath, they're right up there. They're in the top kind of 3 or 4 on the top of my mind of what I can remember from a business point of view. Now, AB, last Tuesday, or Tuesday just gone, we had a webinar. And thank you again to the couple of hundred people that signed into that webinar and tuned in and watched all the details we're covering off. It was really content heavy. And we don't apologise for that. Hopefully you guys have watched it a few times. But Adrian, one of the things that we were asked a lot post-webinar via email and also SMS from people was around progressing buyers. And I thought, you know, what better way than on the Skills Workshop to kind of cover that off again with the team that maybe missed the webinar or wanted to extend the question and the conversation, because I know that we both got quite a number of questions about that. So AB, the question about buyers, why is it so important right now to not only progress them but make sure we give valuable information back to the vendors so they don't get too excited?
Yeah, look, there's no better time than at the present to ensure that every possible detailed conversation you're having with the buyer is passed on to your vendor. So we spoke on Tuesday in the webinar about specific questions and specific hurdles or obstacles, if you like, that buyers need to overcome from getting to a point of saying, oh, I like this property, that's really nice, to actually getting to that point of saying, okay, I can bid unconditionally at auction or I can make an unconditional offer. As we all know, there's a big gap in between. And as we all know, a lot of people start at that point where they say they like it, but they don't get to that final point. So what are the obstacles? What do people need to go through? Why is it that buyers do say they really like it and then don't end up turning up to auction or don't end up making that unconditional offer? It's usually because as agents, we haven't qualified the buyer well enough, number one. Number two, we normally report back to the vendor with really good intentions, by the way. We're all excited saying, oh, we've got a buyer, they really love the house, that's great. But, you know, I'm really specific, and on Tuesday we were role-playing, you and I, Troy, and I was saying to you, okay, what are the obstacles, Troy, that you think you need to overcome between now and the auction date, let's call it, or the EOI date or the sale date? You know, so obviously you've seen it. There's I don't know if there's a family member that needs to come and see as well. So good, that's one big tick you need to make sure, because you know if they're part of the family needs to look at it. 2, finance, have we got it organised, yes or no? 3, contract, building inspection. So the reason, it might sound really minutiae and it might sound like in detail, but when you're actually sitting with the vendor and you say, okay, Troy Malcolm, he's definitely on our shortlist, which is great, but frankly, that's as far as it goes at the moment, because there's 4 obstacles he will need to overcome between now and the next 3 weeks. Now, next week when we catch up, because we're meeting weekly with our vendors, next week when we catch up, I will give you a further update about Troy Malcolm, and I'll let you know how many, if any, of those obstacles that he's actually overcome in order to get to that point to buy your property. So that's real live dialogue, and it's raw, and you've got to get the permission up front at the set to sell meeting as well around that. So say, Adrian or Troy, you know, now that we're going to launch the campaign, I just want to make sure that you're totally fine with the way I work in terms of reporting. What that looks like is I will specifically name each buyer on the shortlist, and I will talk you through any obstacles that may need to overcome in order to buy your property unconditionally. Because what I've found through my experience and what we've found through experience as a company is that people say they like a home, but we know that there's quite a few hurdles that they need to overcome in order to actually buy your property. My role as your agent is to ensure that buyer overcomes those hurdles as seamlessly as possible. And if there's anything I can do to support those hurdles, then I will be there. So A, I've got a sort of conveyancer which I can refer them. B, we've done an upfront pest and building report, so it makes it a lot easier. 3, we've got an oxygen home loan broker, so we can refer them to. So we can do all of that, but ultimately the buyer needs to be progressed both emotionally, which I also can support through, but also from a practical, pragmatic sense by going through those hurdles. And you've got to tell the vendor that my job is also to be a sifter, not an alchemist.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I can't turn I can't turn stone into gold, meaning you can't turn a buyer who's never going to buy into a buyer.
Yep.
My role is to sift through the qualified buyers who are prepared to go on this journey with me and jump through the obstacles together in order to get to that sale point. But if someone is not prepared to do that, and it's not really my role, or it's impossible for me to turn stone into gold or turn a non-buyer into a buyer.
Absolutely. And remember, guys, as well, if you're not having this qualification conversation right now and people are requesting formal documentation, whether that be a contract or any other form of documentation for them to progress through the sale, you may be just being a distributor of documents as opposed to really, like Adrian said, a sifter of great buyers and qualifying them during that process. Gets to the question that most vendors want to know every single step of the way. Who's going to buy my home? Is there going to be competition, and for what price, right? We know that the vendors, that's all that they're thinking about in the back of their mind, and our job is to be that connection point between buyer and seller and make sure that they get the real buyers genuinely interested in the home, progressing through the sale.
Yeah, and a lot of frustration in this industry is from agents trying to be that alchemist. So they're trying to turn a buyer who's never going to be a buyer into a buyer, and then they wonder why they're so frustrated, because they're investing so much time and energy into something that's never going to happen. But those qualifying questions can really help you to do that. And we're the sort of industry that our income is quite speculative. You know, we'll invest time hoping for a reward, but sometimes that time isn't always rewarded with commission, right? So we've got to make sure that, sure, we need to kiss a few frogs in order to get to where we want to go, but if all day you're kissing frogs and there's no prince, that's not going to work, right? So you just got to make sure that you limit the amount of time that's non-dollar productive, limit the amount of conversations you're going to have with people that will never transact with you, and really hone in and qualify real buyers and real vendors as well, because there's a lot of agents who are very frustrated because they're trying to be the alchemist with off-market sales, with vendors that are never going to sell, right? They're like, if you get me 40% above my price, I don't want to sign anything, I don't want to pay any vendor paid marketing. Yeah, sure, you might fluke 1 in 10, or you might have a proper off-market strategy which actually is someone who is qualified, but sure, for discretion or other reasons they don't want to commit to a full campaign. That's a totally appropriate off-market strategy, but there's others which agents can get very frustrated with and waste a lot of time on.
Yeah, and guys, the other side of that is, Adrian, open for inspection dialogue. We've spoken about that time and time again. In my humble opinion, I think that buyer work in 2019 is going to be the differentiator between an audit taker, an agent that's just doing normal numbers and continuing down the path, and those agents that are growing market share and building dominant strategies in their market, both on market and off market. That's going to be the difference. Sure. The way we work, the way we communicate, the way we have authentic dialogue with buyers.
Absolutely. So I think that's critical. I wouldn't be discriminating this type of qualification process with any of your markets. So it needs to be indiscriminate, whether it's a buyer, a tenant, a seller, a supplier, whatever it might be. We've just got to make sure that our industry is not taken for granted when we're in front of people. Sure, there's always times where a market appraisal is just a market appraisal, and it may not ever turn into a listing appointment, right? But it's a great touch point. It's a great person to have on your database. It might even be a great referral source for that person to refer you for other people. I've often had that the case where I've conducted a market appraisal and it's never eventuated into anything, but they've referred me 3 or 4 other people, be it a buyer or a seller. So I think be very conscious of your time. There's no better time than at the moment in this changing landscape of our industry, because I think we are in a changing landscape where we're seeing consolidation, we're seeing attrition, we're seeing exiting as well, we're seeing the growth of super teams, which is all great stuff, but we need to be super conscious of our time because all of us have got 168 hours in the week. The agents who are standing out are the ones that are investing their time really appropriately and really diligently and ensuring that most of their hours, if not all, are hyper dollar productive, which at the moment is prospecting, listing, negotiating, selling, but also keeping a deal together.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to add that to the list in this calendar year.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 39. Just a reminder, Melbourne, we are coming to you on Tuesday, coming up. Next Tuesday, we are there.
Yeah.
Kickstart event, a massive program. If it's anything like the New South Wales one, it's going to be the best one ever. We've only ever had one official one in Melbourne, so it's going to be
awesome.
A hard one to compete with last year. And then
Yeah.
Brisbane, we're coming to you on Valentine's Day this Thursday coming up. Thank you so much. Good luck to everyone out there. We know there are a number of auctions coming through for this weekend. They're starting to see those numbers spike. Great results from last weekend in each one of the markets, and we know that some of the offices are just outperforming what they expected for February. So congratulations. If you're off track, if you have any questions, you have any challenges, feel free to email adrianbo@mcgrath.com.au, Troy Malcolm @mcgrath.com.au. Can't wait to see you around the grounds. Keep sending through your questions that already have and the results. We love seeing them. We love the feedback. Until next week, AB, thank you. See you all around the grounds.
See you guys.